Rick, you're awesome, man. I'm bringing you to everything I do. And, Rick, thank you for welcoming us to your home today. It was a pleasure to tour with Commissioner Hartwick and Representative Madsen, and I'm thrilled they're here with us today. And the fact that you and Pebbles invited us here to share your story with us is going to do a lot to make sure that your neighbors and others have the opportunity to learn more about whole home repairs and to get the help that they need. I want to say thank you to the neighbors who came out today. Don't worry, Rick will get the traffic off the street real soon after I get out of here, but we're glad to be with you today. And I wanted to come here today to highlight a practical, common sense way that we can cut costs and deliver for the good people of Pennsylvania, not just here in Dauphin County, but all across our Commonwealth. And that is by helping them stay in their homes and cut costs when it comes to the necessary repairs that they have. There are a lot of folks who have needed repairs in their homes who can't afford to do it on their own. Homes like this one. And I think it's important to note that all across Pennsylvania, 60% of our entire housing stock was built before 1970. So we've got a lot of need out there across the Commonwealth. And there are a whole lot of folks like Rick and Pebbles who love their homes. They've worked really hard to care for them throughout their lives, and they want to age here with dignity. They want to stay in their homes. I asked Rick if he had any plans to leave. He said, I ain't leaving here alive, right?
That's right.
Right? Rick wants to be able to stay here, and he should be able to stay here in a comfortable, accessible home. You know, the home behind us, notwithstanding Rick's incredible work to care for it, has windows that were original to this house, built in 1950. That means Rick and Pebbles are living in a home with windows from 70 years ago. And I got to believe in those cold winter breezes come through that home, right? And on top of that, the gutters, which are leaking, are now going to be able to be repaired. They're going to renovate the upstairs bathroom, which we got the chance to see. So it's going to be accessible, which I know is particularly important to Pebbles. And they're going to be able to, with a little bit of help, be able to care for their home and, most importantly, stay in it. This is a story playing out all across Pennsylvania. The need that people have for a few repairs are going to allow them to stay in their home. And what we're beginning to see is our government working together, state and county officials, to actually meet that need and allow people to be able to stay in their homes. I want to tell you about our friend Inga from Cambria County. I spoke about Inga when I spoke about the whole homes repair during my annual budget address. She is 72 years old, and she was living in her home in Cambria County without a furnace. Her furnace was broken. You know how she was staying warm in her home in the winter? She had space heaters, and then she would turn the oven on and open up the oven door just to be able to bring heat to her home. Imagine if that was your mom or your grandma. Well, the good news is Inga was able to apply and receive funding through the whole home repair program run out of Cambria County, and she got that broken furnace fixed. Madeline from Bradford County, she had a similar story. She's a 90-year-old widow, and she lived in the same home since 1952. She had a 35-year-old roof that was leaking. She needed money for repairs, and whole home repair allowed for her to get that roof repaired, and no longer was it leaking in her home. And guess what? Inga and Madeline, and of course Rick and Pebbles, well, they represent all kinds of different folks from different walks of life in different communities, but with one similar story, and that is they get to stay in their homes now because of the whole home repair. Listen, whole home repair is common sense. It is a smart investment. And here's the other thing, we know it works. Whole home, just to break it down for you, is funded through the Department of Community and Economic Development under Deputy Secretary Villella, who's here with us today. That's a state agency. The money gets driven out to the counties across Pennsylvania. And then counties here in Dauphin, led by Commissioner Hartwick, Chairman Hartwick, they then send those dollars out to people like Rick and Inga and others for them to be able to get the help that they need. If you are listening to this and wondering, yo, am I like Rick? Do I qualify for this? Go over, yep, gentleman raised his hand in the back. You go over to dced.pa.gov/whole home repairs, and from that, it'll connect you with your county and the qualifications and requirements you need to have in order to get the help in your particular county. Now, Rick was talking about his journey to get this funding, and he's right. It was a little hard at first to maybe get some answers or to qualify, but here's how we know this program is working and that folks were able to figure it out. Because there's been such a demand on this that we've basically run out of money across the state. You know, a program's working when the dollars get committed, they go to help people like Rick and Inga and others, and then there's still demand. In Potter County, which is one of our most rural counties in the state, as of January, they allocated all of the funding they received from the state, and yet they had 8 times the amount of applications than they had funding for. Or in Indiana County, they had enough funding for about 25 projects. The problem is that they had applications for 75 projects that could have gone to help folks. And so I think we can't leave homeowners who are on fixed incomes out in the cold. That's why my budget invests another $50 million into the whole home repairs program, because we know it works. It is common sense and it's bipartisan. And the people taking advantage of this, they live in rural communities and urban communities and suburban communities. They're Republicans and Democrats. And you know what? They need our help. And this is a moment where we got to come together and do common sense things. Commissioner Hartwig talked about the budget that I've put forth that now Representative Madsen and his colleagues are analyzing and looking at. This is a budget that makes a significant number of bold investments and a whole bunch of common sense investments that allow us to cut costs and allow people to stay in their homes. Understand that when I put this budget forward, that it is a balanced budget that cuts taxes and still allows us to make really significant investments. Today in Pennsylvania, we are sitting on a $14 billion surplus. That means over time, we've taken in $14 billion more than we've invested back in the people of Pennsylvania. Now is the time to invest. Invest in cutting costs, investing in allowing people to stay in their homes. And hear me on this. If the legislature were to adopt every single proposal I put forth to both cut taxes and invest, we'd still have an $11 billion surplus when all is said and done. Why am I telling you this? Because right now is a moment to invest. I'm mindful that I am the only governor in the whole country with a divided legislature, meaning one side's led by Democrats, the House, and the other side is led by Republicans, the Senate. And so for us to get anything done, we got to do it in a bipartisan manner. Well, what's more bipartisan than a common sense investment that's going to help people like Rick stay in their homes so that they don't have to, as Commissioner Hartwig talked about, leave their homes and then cost the taxpayers more money for some other program. It's common sense to upgrade our housing stock, to allow people to save money and cut their costs and stay in their homes. This is an example of a common sense bipartisan investment that we can afford, and we need to do it right now. And quite frankly, we can't afford not to do this. This is a moment for us to invest. So I'm grateful to be here today with Rick, Commissioner Hartwig, Representative Madsen. It's good to be back in Dauphin County to make an important announcement like this. I hope that lawmakers will carefully do their analysis on my budget, but not use their analysis to be an excuse for paralysis. Now is the time to act. We've got to make sure we re-up our funding for whole home repairs. And with that, Rick is happy to answer any questions from the meeting. Dennis.
Now, the money that's paying for him, was that from ARPA money or was that in our budget?
That was from an original ARPA funding, and so we're trying to add state dollars to that, yes. By the way, Dennis, you got to check out his Eagles man cave. I know you're a big Eagles fan. It's pretty amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
So counties will run it. Does that mean they all have their own criterion, like elections, where they all, elections are 67 county elections, not one state election?
Sure, great question. The money is funded by the state. It is sent to our counties based on a formula, and then each county can set up criteria for how to drive those dollars out. There's a lot of overlap on that criteria, but I would urge people to consult with their own individual county programs to determine whether they qualify in their counties.
Who gets to do the work?
I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
Determines who gets to do the work, the contractors.
That's done county by county, and I can defer to Commissioner Hartwick if you want to add anything to that.
Correct. Obviously, we want to see, we actually have an investment for workforce development that's coupled in with our South Central PA Works that's also going to assist in trying to provide basic skill sets to those individuals who are not employed or entering the workforce, some basic technical and trade skills to be able to also add to the complement of contractors who have been a part of the selection process within the county. So the county puts out sort of an RFP to see what kind of contractors are interested in doing the work, and I think we've selected a couple of contractors to do these initial works.
And do the homeowners have to pay anything, or is it 100% paid for?
100% paid for.
Who decides who gets it? Because as you said, there's 3 times the ask.
So in our county, it was first come, first serve. So unfortunately, I think we had initially 150 applications. We're going to be able to serve about 40 to 50 individuals when it's all said and done. So clearly triple the amount of initial applications. And we cut it off quickly because we already knew we exceeded that. The amount of need in this county far strips that.
I think, if I could just add that, and I'm happy to take your next question. Triple the amount of applications than they had funding in Dauphin County. Similarly, in Indiana County. We're seeing this trend all across Pennsylvania. There is real need for this, and that's why we've got to fund it with an additional $50 million.
My last question, by my count, since you've had your budget, each week you picked a different item in your budget and spotlighted it at events like this. You know, you have a lot of Republicans over there saying you're asking for too many things and too much money and way too many things going on. Pick 1 or 2 and we'll focus on that, but you've got a lot of things going on in your budget request. Your response to that?
Well, look, I put forth a balanced budget that cuts taxes, that would allow us to make significant investments in education, in public safety, in economic development, in cutting costs, and we'll still have an $11 billion surplus at the end of the day. I think for too long, some politicians in Harrisburg have said, oh, we can't do that, and we can't consider 10 things at once. We should only consider one thing at a time. And you know what's happened over the last decade? We're 49th in higher education. We're 47th in producing renewable energies. We've got an unconstitutional education system. We're falling behind on economic development. Now is the time for bold action. We can afford to act. And so while I expect lawmakers to do their analysis, they can't use analysis as an excuse for paralysis. Now is the time to act. And I would say to any lawmakers who don't like an idea I put forth, well, what's your idea? And if you're not putting forth an idea, then you've got to be okay falling behind. You've got to be okay being less competitive. You've got to be okay overseeing a system of unconstitutional education funding. I'm not okay with that. I want to put money back in people's pockets, and I want to make investments, and we can afford to do that right now. And to any lawmakers who want to play small ball, I'd say now's the time to play big kid ball. Get out there and let's play. Let's do good for the people of Pennsylvania.
Absolutely. Great.
Yep.
Related to what Dennis just asked, you had asked for this a year ago in your budget, and Senator Republicans didn't give it to you. You're asking for it again. Do you feel like you're in a better negotiating position a year later? Are they asking for anything in return for something like whole home repairs?
I think what's clear about whole home today, and maybe wasn't as apparent a year ago, is that it works and that we've driven these dollars out. There is far more demand than there are resources. When I delivered my first budget address, counties were just beginning to receive the money. They hadn't even gone through the process that Commissioner Hartwick spoke about before. So we know that this program works. We know that people like Rick and others across Pennsylvania need it, and now is the time to act. Okay. Thank you all very much.